How to feel the presence of Jesus even when you don't believe. The presence of Jesus is not something distant, reserved only for those who have unwavering faith. It is not a reward for perfection or certainty. It is here now, quietly waiting to meet you in the spaces where doubt lingers, in the corners of your heart where questions rise and faith feels fragile. Many search for signs, for moments of certainty, for an undeniable proof of his existence, yet they miss what is already present. The world teaches us that belief must come first, that understanding must precede experience. But what if it is curiosity, openness, and the willingness to notice that allows his presence to break through? Doubt is not the absence of God. It is a doorway to encounter him in ways that belief alone cannot reach. You may wonder, how can I feel him if I do not fully believe? That question itself is a spark, a silent invitation for something greater to enter your awareness. Every restless thought, every moment of uncertainty, every longing for something real is a signal. It is your soul calling for connection, for a peace that surpasses understanding. His presence is subtle. It does not always arrive as a thunderous miracle or a visible sign. Often it whispers, nudges, and gently guides. A sudden calm in the middle of chaos, a quiet reassurance in your heart when logic offers no answer, a sense of being held when the world seems unsteady. These are all expressions of his nearness. You do not have to claim faith to feel this. You only need to allow yourself to be present, to notice, and to open the hidden spaces of your heart. Imagine a life where curiosity becomes your guide, where questions and doubt are not obstacles but invitations to experience something real. In this journey, you are not failing by not believing fully. Instead, you are preparing your heart to meet him in a way that is intimate, transformative, and deeply personal. Each moment of reflection, each act of honesty with yourself is a step closer to sensing his presence. He moves where belief has not yet fully formed, touching lives in unexpected ways, creating peace, guidance, and love in places you thought were unreachable. Even when the world feels harsh and indifferent, even when logic tells you there is nothing beyond the tangible, he is near, present in ways that cannot always be measured, yet can always be felt. This video is an invitation. It is an opportunity to notice what has been waiting quietly for your attention, to sense that presence does not require proof or perfect belief. It asks only openness, curiosity, and a willingness to step into the invisible. You are about to explore how to awaken your heart to the subtle, undeniable reality of Jesus' presence even when faith feels absent. It is a journey of discovery where doubt becomes a bridge, where your questions are sacred, and where his nearness is real, waiting to transform the way you see yourself, the world, and life itself. Awakening curiosity in the midst of doubt. Curiosity is the first step toward experiencing Jesus even when belief feels distant. When your mind resists faith and your heart is uncertain, those very questions become a doorway rather than a barrier. Doubt is not a failure. It is the beginning of awareness. Each restless thought, each whispered, "What if?" is an invitation for something greater to enter your consciousness. You do not need certainty or proof to encounter his presence. Your questioning itself carries energy that draws him near. When you awaken curiosity, you allow yourself to notice the subtle signs around you. A moment of unexpected peace, a thought that feels guided, or an emotion that moves beyond your understanding. These are glimpses of his presence reaching into the ordinary, the mundane, the overlooked. Even skepticism can become fertile ground for experiencing him because it opens you to observe, to listen, to feel without expectation. The heart that wonders is a heart ready to receive. Awakening curiosity also means paying attention to the tension within. That sense of unrest, the questioning of everything you once assumed. is not meant to push you away from Jesus, but toward Him. It is in the space of not knowing, of seeking, that His presence often becomes tangible. Moments of doubt can trigger a deep internal searching that awakens a spiritual awareness you may have ignored. When you allow curiosity to guide you, you begin to notice patterns, coincidences, or subtle nudges that speak directly to your inner life. These are not random. They are His way of meeting you where you are, even before belief arrives. The simple act of noticing, of pausing long enough to sense the world and your own heart, creates the space for Him to reveal Himself. You realize that experiencing Jesus is less about the mind fully agreeing and more about the heart being willing to pay attention, to wonder, and to say quietly, "I am open to you." Your journey into His presence starts here, in the questions, in the curiosity, in the willingness to step into uncertainty. Each moment of doubt is transformed into an opportunity to sense something deeper. You may not yet have faith in the conventional sense, but you can experience the reality of His nearness through awareness, attention, and the courage to let curiosity guide you. This is how hearts that doubt begin to recognize the living presence of Jesus, not as a concept or an idea, but as a tangible, transforming reality. The subtle language of the divine. Jesus does not always speak through words or grand gestures. His presence often moves in silence, in feelings, in fleeting moments that go unnoticed if we are not attentive. The divine communicates in a language beyond thought, beyond belief, beyond the conscious mind. It is a whisper in your heart, a sudden clarity in your mind, a sense of peace that rises without explanation. You do not need faith to understand it. You only need awareness. This subtle language shows itself in emotions that feel deeper than circumstance. A wave of comfort in a moment of fear, an unexpected sense of guidance when you feel lost, or a sudden openness to love when you had closed yourself off. These are all ways His presence speaks. The divine often chooses the ordinary to communicate the extraordinary, showing that He is present not just in sacred spaces, but in everyday life. Recognizing this language requires slowing down, paying attention to what you feel rather than what you think. It asks you to notice the small movements in your heart, the quiet stirrings of conscience, the sudden awareness that something unseen is near. The divine does not force recognition. It offers gentle nudges, subtle invitations to awaken to His presence. You might notice it in the kindness of a stranger, the beauty of nature, the flow of an idea that guides you toward peace. Learning to interpret these signs is less about logic and more about sensitivity. It is about trusting the emotional truth of your experience, the internal resonance that says, "This feels right, this is more than chance." Even in doubt, even in uncertainty, the language of the divine continues to speak. It reaches beyond belief, beyond words, into the very essence of your awareness. By listening to it, you begin to experience Jesus not as an abstract concept, but as a living presence that moves with subtle power, shaping your perception, guiding your heart, and inviting you into deeper awareness of life itself. When silence speaks louder than faith. There is a power in silence that often goes unnoticed by those who think belief must come first. When the mind quiets and the heart stops demanding proof, the presence of Jesus can be felt more clearly than in any words or rituals. Silence is not emptiness. It is a space where the unseen becomes tangible, where peace arrives uninvited, and where the restless soul can finally breathe. In stillness, the distractions of doubt and overthinking fade, allowing subtle awareness to emerge. When you allow yourself to sit in quiet without expectation, you begin to notice sensations that point to Him. a warmth in your chest, a calm that descends without reason, or a sense of being held even in turmoil. All of these are ways he reaches hearts that are open, even if faith feels absent. Silence creates a receptive space where his presence can touch you directly, without needing validation or understanding. It is here that the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. The practice of silence is not about emptying the mind completely. It is about creating room for the invisible to make itself known. When you resist the urge to force belief, you discover that stillness allows awareness to rise naturally. Even a brief moment of pause can reveal guidance, reassurance, or a quiet sense of love that defies logic. These experiences demonstrate that Jesus' presence does not require full comprehension. It only asks you to stop and notice. Silence also teaches patience. It reminds you that presence is not always dramatic or immediate. It comes subtly, weaving into ordinary life in ways that are often overlooked. By embracing quiet, you learn to feel rather than analyze, to sense rather than question, and to be present in the moments that reveal him. In the absence of noise, the presence of Jesus speaks loudly, transforming doubt into a doorway and awareness into a direct encounter with something real, something eternal, and something profoundly personal. The unexpected encounters. Jesus often appears where we least expect him, in moments that seem ordinary or even mundane. You may be walking through your day, weighed down by doubt or caught in routines, and suddenly feel a presence, a calm, or an inexplicable warmth that shifts everything. These encounters are not accidents. They are deliberate whispers of his nearness, reminders that he moves beyond belief and expectation to meet hearts wherever they are. These moments can be fleeting, a glance that feels significant, a word that strikes deeper than intended, or a sudden understanding in the middle of confusion. People who have experienced him without fully believing often describe it as a gentle disruption of their ordinary life, a subtle but undeniable proof that he is near. The world may insist that miracles must be grand, visible, or dramatic, yet his most powerful work is often hidden in plain sight, waiting for your attention. Unexpected encounters teach us to remain open even when certainty is absent. They show that Jesus does not wait for perfect faith to appear. He meets curiosity, longing, and even skepticism with presence. These experiences may feel mysterious, uncomfortable, or inexplicable at first, but they are invitations to recognize his nearness. By noticing them, you begin to connect dots that were invisible before, sensing that life is guided by more than chance, and that something greater is orchestrating moments with purpose. Even in doubt, even in confusion, these encounters reveal a truth that transcends logic. His presence can be felt, touched, and experienced without a full understanding. Each subtle sign, each meaningful coincidence, each gentle guidance is a thread weaving your awareness into a living relationship with him. These moments remind you that the divine is not confined to belief or doctrine, but moves in the real, tangible flow of life, creating space for your heart to awaken to something profoundly real and deeply transformative. Opening the senses to grace. Jesus speaks not only through thoughts or words, but through the world around you. Nature, art, music, acts of kindness, and fleeting moments of beauty are all channels through which his presence can be felt. When you open your senses fully, allowing yourself to notice colors, sounds, textures, and emotions without rushing, you create a bridge to experience him beyond belief. Grace often arrives disguised as ordinary life, waiting for awareness to recognize it. It begins with simple observation, the rustle of leaves, the warmth of sunlight, a melody that stirs your soul. These are not mere coincidences. They are reminders that something greater surrounds you, that the divine moves in patterns too subtle to analyze but impossible to ignore when felt deeply. Your senses become instruments for perception, translating the invisible into tangible experiences of peace, love, and connection. Opening your senses also means feeling rather than thinking. A touch, a smile, a quiet moment shared with another human being can awaken a recognition of his presence. Even without conscious faith, these experiences resonate in the heart, creating an awareness that something sacred is at work in your life. By paying attention, you begin to see that Jesus is not confined to places of worship or ritual, but exists in every moment where life is fully perceived and appreciated. Allowing your senses to guide you cultivates attentiveness to the subtle signs of grace. Each moment of awareness becomes a step closer to encountering him. You realize that experiencing Jesus is not dependent on intellectual certainty, but on a willingness to perceive, to feel, and to recognize that life itself is filled with invitations to his presence. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and through your senses, his presence becomes a living reality in every breath, every gesture, and every heartbeat. The heart's invitation without words. Jesus does not wait for elaborate prayers or perfectly formed faith to meet you. The heart itself can speak without words, and in that silence, an invitation is extended. Honest longing, quiet reflection, or even unspoken questions are enough to draw his presence near. Your heart's sincerity matters more than the strength of your belief, and your openness becomes the channel through which he communicates. These invitations often take the form of emotions that cannot be fully explained, moments when a sense of peace, love, or comfort rises unexpectedly. They may appear during private reflection, while helping another person, or in the solitude of your thoughts. These are not coincidences. They are his responses to the honesty of your heart, showing that presence is not earned by doctrine or ritual, but received in the authenticity of being. Even longing mixed with doubt carries power. When you allow yourself to feel what is true inside, your hopes, fears, and unanswered questions, you create a space for him to meet you where you are. This interaction is not about proving faith, it is about resonance. Your heart, willing to be vulnerable and attentive, becomes a vessel through which the divine flows. By listening to this inner invitation, you begin to notice guidance, comfort, and subtle signs that his presence is real. The unspoken conversation between your heart and his nearness reveals that connection is not limited to words or understanding. Even without verbalizing faith, you are participating in a dialogue with the divine, and through this silent communion, the presence of Jesus becomes tangible, alive, and transformative in your life. The mystery of presence beyond belief. Jesus' presence is not bound by what the mind accepts or what the heart claims to believe. There is a profound mystery in how he can be felt even by those who consciously doubt. Faith is often imagined as a prerequisite, yet countless experiences reveal that his nearness transcends understanding, arriving in moments when belief seems impossible. This paradox is not a flaw in logic. It is an invitation to encounter the divine in a way that surpasses thought, definition, or expectation. The mystery unfolds in subtle ways: a sudden clarity, an unexpected comfort, a feeling of guidance during confusion. These moments demonstrate that presence does not rely on intellectual assent. The divine moves through the unseen, operating in dimensions that cannot be measured by reason, but can be felt in the deepest parts of your being. Doubt does not block this, it often amplifies it, creating a receptive tension that allows awareness to awaken. This presence invites observation and sensitivity. It challenges conventional ideas of faith by showing that the spiritual is not always proven, yet it is undeniably real. The mystery is that encountering Jesus is not a matter of belief first, but of openness. Your heart becomes the landscape where the invisible can manifest, where questions, skepticism, and uncertainty become conduits rather than obstacles. Embracing this paradox requires patience and attention. It calls for the willingness to notice the ordinary as extraordinary and to trust experiences that cannot be fully explained. The divine reveals itself not through arguments or persuasion, but through living reality, through moments of quiet transformation, and through awareness that something greater is at work. The presence of Jesus beyond belief is a living mystery, accessible to every heart that allows curiosity, openness, and attentiveness to guide it into his nearness. Emotional truth as a gateway. Feelings have a power that belief alone cannot reach. Love, longing, sorrow, and even grief can act as bridges to experiencing Jesus in a real and tangible way. Emotions are the language through which the divine often communicates, bypassing the need for intellectual agreement or conscious faith. When you allow yourself to fully feel, you open a channel for his presence to enter, transform, and guide you. These emotional experiences are not random. A surge of compassion, a wave of unexpected peace, or a deep sense of connection in moments of loneliness can all carry the fingerprints of his presence. The heart recognizes truth in ways the mind cannot explain, responding to what is real even in the absence of certainty. Emotional honesty becomes the gateway for the divine to move in your life, revealing that presence is always available, even in the midst of doubt. By embracing your feelings without judgment, you create space for his nearness. The longing for meaning, the ache of emptiness, and the joy of simple wonder are all invitations to recognize that he is here. Emotional truth becomes evidence of his reality, showing that the heart can sense what the mind struggles to define. Each authentic feeling, no matter how small or fleeting, carries the potential to connect you with his presence. This approach transforms ordinary experiences into sacred encounters. The emotions you feel daily are not merely reactions, they are doors to awareness, conduits through which Jesus speaks, comforts, and guides. Even without full belief, the heart can recognize him through the truth of what it feels. By honoring your emotions, you step into a reality where his presence is tangible, alive, and transformative, revealing that the pathway to him often begins not with knowledge, but with feeling. The quiet revolution within. Transformation often begins quietly, without fanfare or dramatic signs. When you allow openness, patience, and receptivity to guide your inner life, subtle changes begin to occur that can shift the way you sense Jesus' presence. This quiet revolution is not forced or deliberate. It arises naturally when you let awareness and curiosity lead, when you pay attention to the small movements in your heart and mind. These inner shifts may seem insignificant at first, a new sense of calm in stressful moments, a gentle nudging toward compassion, or a quiet trust in circumstances you cannot control. Yet each of these subtle changes is evidence that his presence is working within you, even without active belief. The transformation happens silently, through small awakenings that accumulate, creating a foundation for a deeper recognition of the divine. The quiet revolution also teaches patience. It shows that connection with Jesus does not have to be immediate or dramatic to be real. Awareness grows through consistent attentiveness to life, through noticing moments of guidance, insight, or comfort. Each time you pause to sense, reflect, or simply allow yourself to be present, you participate in a process that gradually reshapes your experience of reality. By embracing this subtle transformation, you begin to see that the extraordinary often emerges from ordinary life. The way you feel, the way you respond, the small acts of noticing and presence, all of them become channels for his influence. The quiet revolution within does not demand belief first. It allows presence to awaken naturally. Through this inner shift, you become increasingly attuned to his nearness, experiencing Jesus not as an abstract concept, but as a living, tangible reality that moves within and around you every day. Living with evidence of the invisible. Even without full belief, the signs of Jesus' presence are all around you, waiting to be noticed. These are not always miraculous or dramatic. They often appear as subtle moments that defy coincidence. A sudden clarity in your thoughts, an unexpected word that changes your perspective, a sense of peace that rises in the middle of confusion. Recognizing these signs requires attentiveness and a willingness to see beyond what is visible. Living with evidence of the invisible means paying attention to patterns, synchronicities, and emotional truths that point to something greater at work. When you notice a repeated message in your day, a feeling of guidance, or a quiet comfort that arrives at the right time, you are encountering proof of His presence. These experiences do not demand that you fully believe, yet they confirm that life is orchestrated with care, and that Jesus is actively near, shaping your journey even when doubt persists. This awareness changes the way you move through the world. Ordinary moments become invitations to perceive the extraordinary. A kind gesture, a moment of insight, a fleeting sense of connection. They all become evidence of what cannot be seen, tangible reminders that the divine moves in the everyday. By living attentively, you create space to recognize these signs consistently, training your heart to notice what was always present but previously overlooked. Acknowledging this invisible presence cultivates wonder and receptivity. Each small proof of His nearness reinforces that He is not distant or abstract, but intimately involved in your life. By learning to live with this awareness, you experience a reality where faith is not a prerequisite for connection. The invisible becomes perceptible, subtle guidance becomes undeniable, and the ordinary becomes filled with hints of the extraordinary. His presence is constant, and by noticing these signs, you begin to live fully aware of the reality of Jesus in your life. Encountering the unseen, an invitation to transformation. Jesus is always present, ready to meet you exactly where you are, even when belief feels distant or absent. This final invitation is not about proving faith or achieving certainty. It is about opening your heart to the reality that has been waiting patiently for your awareness. Transformation begins when you allow yourself to notice His presence in ways that surpass logic, expectations, or understanding. The unseen is not invisible to the heart. It moves through moments of peace, clarity, and love, guiding you in ways that feel natural yet profound. When you pay attention, you realize that life itself is filled with subtle invitations to awaken, to sense, and to respond to Him. Each question, each act of curiosity, and each honest feeling becomes a doorway through which Jesus enters, reshaping your inner world and expanding your awareness. This encounter transforms not through spectacle, but through presence. It reshapes your perspective, softens resistance, and awakens a sense of trust and wonder that cannot be forced. You begin to notice guidance in everyday life, comfort in uncertainty, and joy in small, unexpected moments. The unseen becomes tangible, and your relationship with Him grows not through obligation, but through recognition and openness. Jesus' presence is not distant, conditional, or dependent on perfect belief. It is accessible, intimate, and powerful enough to change life from the inside out. By embracing this invitation, you step into a reality where doubt does not separate you, where curiosity leads you forward, and where your heart becomes a living space for transformation. His presence is here, waiting, ready to guide, comfort, and transform, inviting you to experience life fully, deeply, and eternally. The journey does not end here. It begins anew with every moment of awareness, every question, and every act of openness to His presence.